Thanks. Hey guys. Sorry, I'm having issues figuring out what's going on with my, oh, hold on, start video. There we go. All right, I think I'm online now, hopefully. So just to give you guys a little bit of background here. I am muting folks to begin with, just because we are covering a huge piece of content. So I want to make sure that as I'm sharing, I am giving enough information, but also sharing content and like keeping everybody engaged. So bear with me 2 more seconds, I promise. I promise as soon as I figure how to share my screen, like this will all be good. So if you are here with me live, down at the bottom of the screen, if you hover over your Zoom link, there is it's a chat box. So if you don't see it, just like scroll your mouse to the bottom, you'll see this little chat box. You can pop that up, ask me questions as we go. If you are watching this on the replay, just go ahead and watch the video through. If it's on Facebook, if that's where I posted it, just post it on the Facebook video. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can put it in the YouTube comments. But I want to show you, let's see. I want to show you my screen if I can. Share screen, 1 participant can share at a time. Okay. I don't know if you guys can even see my screen yet. I wish that there was something here that would tell me if you guys were seeing my screen. Goodness gracious. I'm assuming no. Sorry. I know that we're late and I want to get through this. Advanced sharing options. Okay. All right, well, I had a whole like slideshow presentation here for you guys, and I guess I'm gonna have to share it when I share the replay of this video, because for whatever reason it's just not working. Video settings, integrated, share my background, that's audio. Like there is a share screen button here and it's just not. There we go. Share. Okay. I think y'all have it now. It's not on the right screen. I need to back it up a couple of screens because I was clicking and clicking and clicking. But here we are. I think we've got it. So, all right. If you're hanging with me live, first of all, thank you. Welcome. I'm super excited to be discussing gut health with you tonight. It's a pretty hefty topic, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and I want to be respectful to getting done on time. So I've muted everyone here on arrival. If you have questions or comments, please use the chat box at the bottom. I mentioned if you hover over the bottom of your screen, you will see a chat box. I will keep an eye out for any questions that you might have. If I'm not able to get to all of the questions tonight, don't worry. I will be sure to answer them all in a follow-up email. So with that, let's get started. Okay, so tonight, this is a biggie of a topic, and I truly believe that it's the most important topic that you can talk about when it comes to your health. It is totally 100% the single most important thing that you can do in your health journey, and that is protecting your gut. So at best, this can mean a better quality of life. At the very least, it can literally mean the difference between life and death, especially for some people. I know for myself, like I have my own story to share when it comes to my gut health. For my own nephew who is battling cancer, I think that there are some things that he could tie back into with his recovery, to his gut health, and just so many other things that can be healed through your gut. So the question that I have for you guys tonight, and it's one that is 100% personal to you. You do not have to comment in our comment field tonight. But if you'd like to, and if you'd like to share, I just would really love to know, are you really fine? And I want to define what fine means to you. So if fine to you looks like waking up every day with stiff and sore muscles, if it's chronic pain, if it's regular headaches, is it weight that won't go away? I mean, that's one that I've dealt with. Is it sleep? You know, do you not sleep all the way through the night? That's another one that I've dealt with. Is it being constipated? Yep, been there, done that. Do you battle anxiety or depression? Like, yep, been there, done that. What about your brain? What about anything that's going on with your brain? Do you feel like you have migraines, dyslexia, ADHD, ADD, anything that would trigger like brain health? Skin issues, acne, eczema, psoriasis. Do you feel like you have food allergies? Are you somebody who suffers from IBS? What about low libido? I know for both men and women, that is something that we all suffer with. Low energy levels. Like, it's so easy for us to wake up every day and think, oh, I got up with the kids in the middle of the night because they were sick. They peed the bed. They were crawling into bed because they had a nightmare. And then you think, oh, I'm just exhausted because of that. Or maybe is it because you just think like, wow, I've been running around. Like, I'm in the midst of doing a home renovation. I'm working full time. I'm, still buying groceries, cooking every night, like trying to research healthy things, working out. Like, I do all of these. I'm running in a million different directions, just like everybody else. And I think, this is just life. I'm just tired. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe we need to look at hormones. Do you have low hormones? How well do you handle stress? That's a really great question for a lot of people. Like, do you bite off at the people that you shouldn't? Are you feeling like, wow, I just snap at the last given moment? All of these things are ailments that can be linked to gut health. True statement right there. Your cells are literally made up of everything that you put in your mouth. So, as you're thinking about all of that, I want to talk about, gut health as a whole. And 90% of our sickness or our diseases start in the gut. So if you start your work there, you are almost guaranteed that you have a 9 out of 10 shot that you're starting in the right place. It's not fixed by cutting out, one food. It's not fixed by, following a diet and doing it super strict for 2 months and then saying, woohoo, I'm healed. That's really not how it works with your gut. I am in my early to mid 30s. It's taken a lot of years to do the damage that I've done to my gut. And so it's going to be a process to reverse it. The good news is that your body will heal. 95% of your body is going to bounce back like you wouldn't believe. God designed our bodies to heal themselves. So if we stop damaging it, it will start to heal itself on its own. And that is very simple. It comes from cutting out foods, adding in certain foods, and in some cases, adding in some supplements, and just, doing those things so that your body will start to absorb the right things. You can have a better and healthier life in the next 10 years than you've had in the last 10 years. And that's kind of an epiphany even for me, because like being in my early to mid 30s, I think like, wow, like could I really be healthier in my 40s than I am right now in my 20s and my 30s? And depending at where you are in life, maybe you're thinking there's no way I'm going to be healthier in my 50s than I was in my 20s, or healthier in my 60s or 70s than I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s. You know, pick a decade, I don't care. But the truth of the matter is that yes, like you can turn your health around and you can be healthier for the next 10 years of your life than you were in the last 10. And one thing as a faithful person that I like to keep in mind is that, you know, our body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. And I have abused my temple. Like I have. I'm not going to sit here and try to be holier than thou in front of you guys. Like I have. I've drank too much. I've eaten like poo. I've not exercised. I've slept instead of getting up and being active. But our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit. And we have been given the stewardship to protect it. And so tonight, as I'm talking through some of these things that we can be doing to proactively hold on to our health, I want you to think about that, because it's definitely something for me that I keep coming back to, and I keep thinking like, okay, Jill, how can you do better? How can you treat it better? Because let's face it, none of us are perfect. And I'm not going to pretend tonight that like my job is to be perfect, because it's not. It's about progress, not perfection. The other thing that I will call out is that you cannot do what you're called to do when your health is suppressed. So I think back, if anybody knows me and my personal journey, like it is very much around fertility, and it's a long story and a long journey. But I think about 2 years into my journey, which would have been probably about 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And I was depressed, and I was sad, and I was angry, and I was eating like crap and drinking a lot. Like, admittedly, I drank a lot. And I look back at that time in my life, and I mean, I had to go through it. You know, it was one of those stages where I clearly had to work through my anger. But like, I was still trying to launch a business. I was trying to talk to people about health. I was trying to work on my own health, which is great. Like, I was taking the steps, I was moving forward. That's awesome. But I couldn't do what I was called to do because I was blocked by anger. And there are still things today, like I look at my future, I look at what I'm trying to do. I want to help people who are trying to build their health. Doesn't mean that I'm in the perfect place. It doesn't mean that I'm like the perfect person. I'm going to work through my own thing. But the point is that you can't do what you're called to do when your health is suppressed. And I was in a really unhealthy place in my life at that point. So I couldn't have possibly even had this conversation with you guys about health for gut in the place that I was 2 to 3 years ago. So here I am, growing, moving forward. It's all part of life. And there's something that I'll tell my folks who are oil users, because I started off as an oil user. Some of you watching this may have not even dabbled into oils yet. But there's something that comes in your first box of oils that wasn't physically sitting there, okay? But it's curiosity and discernment is what I'll call it. So what I mean by that is labels are going to start to bother you, and they should. Oh boy, should they. If you are making bad decisions with your health, more than you're making good ones, you won't feel well. If you're making a lot of good decisions, but you're still making a few of the bad ones, you might feel better, but I won't say that you're going to feel great. So you have to decide how you want to feel as we continue on, okay? This is not an oils class. I'm going to tell you right now, you cannot use one oil as a Band-Aid and have it change your lifestyle decisions. It's just not how it goes. So if that's what you're looking for, is something fast and easy, this is not the conversation for you. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get there. It doesn't mean that someday you're not going to come back to this video and think like, thank you, Jill. But this is not the conversation for you right now. If you are looking for an oil or a supplement and you're like, hey, this is going to be what repairs my life. Because the fact of the matter is that doesn't exist. And the goal is not to cover up symptoms. The goal is not to feel okay. The goal is total repair, total body repair. And you have to want to fight for it. You have to want it for yourself. And sometimes that means getting to a point in your health where you or your child's life is at stake. It's like so poor that you can't ignore the lifestyle decisions that you've been making. And when I say that, I mean sugar binging, processed foods, eating out, fast food, or even just like not caring about where your food comes from. So thinking about your meats and like, were they fed grains? Were they fed soy? Were they grass fed? You know, it's like, you have to really want to kind of dig into it. And when you are sick enough to really look anywhere but up, then that's really when you're ready to dig in. And that's really when the repairs are going to last. Okay. So I know that's kind of a harsh statement, but I want to just set the expectation for what you're going to get in the next few minutes with us. So let's talk about your gut. Let's talk about what it is. Your gut starts where the food goes in, where the ends or where it ends is where the food comes out. So mouth, rectum, boom. In your mouth, food is chewed and the digestive enzymes get released. The acid helps to kill unwanted fungi, bacteria, parasites, all that stick onto your food. Once the food gets into your stomach and the small intestine takes over, that's really where most of your nutrients get absorbed. The small intestine is the most sensitive and it's also most prone to gut damage. So if you're somebody who has an off gut, small intestine is likely the first place to start looking. In a large intestine, the bacteria then assist with the actual digestion of food and the detoxification. And at that point, that's when it moves into the removal system and where it comes out of our rectum. All right. So let's chat a little bit about healing your gut or just, talking about your gut in general. So the cool thing is that because God designed us to be healers of our own, our guts will actually heal themselves. So bacteria in your gut will start to grow while you are in utero. So kind of a first fun fact. And the cool thing or scary thing, depending on how you look at it, is that most of our gut is then developed by the time we are 3 years old. So there are well-documented studies that show that our guts are developed before we are 3, which is cool. And yet also if you have toddlers, now is the time to start thinking about their guts. When they are 3 and under, now is the time to say, hey, I know that goldfish are easy to chew on or they get soft really easy in your mouth. But it's not doing anything for their gut and it can hurt them long term. Another fun fact about our guts is that exposure actually does more good. So I think about my own childhood. I'm one of 10. My mom used to tell us all the time to go outside and play outside and, feel the sunshine and do all of the things. I'm sure if she were here live tonight, she would tell you, I remember when my mom used to tell me, go outside and ride your bike and don't come home until the sun goes down. But man, when the sun went down, if you weren't home for dinner, then she was ringing the bell and it was just a different time. But the truth of the matter is that it's well documented that exposure to dirt and bacteria, even animals, aid into the development of a healthier immune system. And as it is today, we don't have constant exposure to dirt, which would train our immune system. And therefore, that can lead to what they call an autoimmune disease. And there's a lot of them out there. They're immense in their different symptoms. But if you were to look at autoimmune disease as one group versus individually, if you were to plug them all together and look at them as one group, the number of people who have an autoimmune disease actually rivals the number of people with, or I shouldn't say people, the number of Americans with heart disease. And anyone who's living in the United States should know that heart disease is like the number one disease of the American citizens, and it's one of the highest killers in our country. So that's kind of something interesting to think about. And just as you're building your immune system, if you have kids, like, how do you want to strengthen their immune system? Additionally, I will say is that if you are using antibiotics, the earlier that you're using antibiotics with your kids, the more damage that they do. And what I mean by that is that if they're used too early, before your kids have the chance to develop their gut, to develop the bacteria that should line their gut, they risk, or you risk, them losing that bacteria for their entire lifetime. So really, the ages between utero and 3 years old are incredibly important when it comes to developing a gut. And if you start hindering that too early, it literally will affect your child's life or their health for the rest of their life. Doesn't mean that they can't, correct certain things. It doesn't mean that they can't get their gut on track, but it does mean that there are certain strains of bacteria that they will never get back again. The other thing that I think is a cool fact is that children who are born vaginally have a different gut bacteria than those who are born by C-section. That is not a slam to any mama who has had a C-section birth or a vaginal birth. It is just a truth fact that there are different gut bacteria that those babies are exposed to. I'm not saying one is better over the other. I'm just saying it's different. Another cool fact, probiotics are a good bacteria, and prebiotics feed that bacteria. So if you ever see a kid's probiotic or any probiotic that also has a prebiotic in it, it's really beneficial because it helps to feed that bacteria in your body. Okay, so that's something cool to know. The other, I guess, another fact that I'll share with you guys is that you have about 3 to 4.5 pounds of bacteria in your gut. They are highly, highly organized, and they work together in a pecking order. So if our gut is ever sterilized, we literally would not survive. The human digestive tract, it's a long tube. It's open to the world because it starts at your mouth, it ends at your rectum. And if we eat or drink a plethora of toxins, it can do a lot of damage. But you might think to yourself, well, if I'm doing all of that, why won't I die? It's because the tube is coated with bacterial layers that provide that natural barrier against invaders. So if your gut gets damaged, it's kind of like a city that has no protection. You're open to viruses, parasites, bad bacteria, toxic substances, dangerous chemicals, candida, like a ton more. So not only does our gut flora protect us, but it also helps to absorb the nutrients. And without it, you could become malnourished. It sets up a chain of degenerative changes in the digestive wall, and that can impact your ability to absorb things from your food, meaning like you could eat good food, but you're not getting any nutrients out of it. All right, so let's talk about how we damage our gut, because there's a lot of ways where we do so. Number one being antibiotics. Antibiotics kill your energy vitamins. By energy vitamins, I mean B1, B2, B3, B6, B12, vitamin K, magnesium, and potassium. Like, kill your energy vitamins. So if you're ever feeling sluggish, think about, what antibiotics am I on? What regular pharmaceuticals am I taking? Because that's probably going to be killing your energy vitamins. Magnesium and potassium are also a part of that. And to anybody who is very conscious of their, their vitamins, magnesium is very important in a lot of ways. Potassium is also very important to your bone density. So super important to your body. Other things that may kill your gut health, antacids, can't talk tonight. Antacids, they diminish the calcium. So even though you might think like, oh, it's an antacid and it says it has all this calcium in it and it's going to help me like with my heartburn. No, it actually diminishes your calcium. It diminishes your folic acid, your iron, your vitamins B and D. So it's actually very detrimental to your health. There are natural ways that you can fight your heartburn. Antidepressants. These are known to kill your CQ10 and your vitamin B2. Anti-inflammatory drugs like cortisone and prednisone deplete you of calcium, zinc, and other vitamins such as C and D. Blood pressure medicines will lower your ability to absorb calcium, magnesium, potassium, and sodium. Cholesterol lowering drugs take away your CQ10. Hormone replacement therapies will steal magnesium. And if you are somebody who is trying to get pregnant, magnesium is something super duper important. So those hormone replacement therapies are not so great. I am talking about the pill. Vitamin B and C, along with folic acid, they are also robbed of you when you are taking a hormone replacement therapy. Stress, which is something that we all have to mitigate in some way, shape, or form. Old age, alcoholism, pollution, exposure. When I say exposure to toxic substances, that is everything from your household cleaners to stuff that is in the air. They all rob your gut from nutrients and will cause damage. Radiation, okay? My nephew is sick right now. I know he's going through radiation. It makes me sick to know that he's doing that, and that is what is going to save him, right? But radiation is something that will deplete your gut, and that can be something big like what he's going through. It can be something small, such as blue light from computer screens, cell phones. That can all damage your gut when you are connected to your cell phone 24/7. X-rays on your teeth, MRIs, scans at the airport if you're somebody who flies really often. That can all deplete your guts of nutrients. And of course, diet plays a huge part in all of this big puzzle as well. A diet that's high in fiber from grains, like breakfast cereal, bread, that has a huge effect on our gut flora. Bottle-fed babies develop different gut flora than breastfed babies, and it's not good. Again, I'm not here to judge any mama who bottle-fed their babies. I'm just stating a fact that the gut flora is different in our kids. Prolonged fasting. So if you're somebody who is really into fasting for losing weight, starvation, overeating, that will seriously alter the composition of your gut flora, and it can lead to lifelong problems. Here's the thing. Opportunistic bacteria can get out of control because they're being fed the wrong things, or because good bacteria that keep them in check, they're dying. They're dying because they're being attacked by the gut wall. When this happens, the bad bacteria get through the gut wall. It's called the gut wall barrier, and then they end up getting into the lymph nodes and then into the bloodstream, which can cause a host of problems. So when it's not controlled, it really can damage the gut wall, and that's what we call a leaky gut, or when things get leaky.
Have you mentioned anything about the tight tinctures in your gut intestinal wall and how those open up when you were taking antibiotics and gluten?
Great question, Amy. I did not get into the specifics of that. That is something that I think gets into more of like a diagnostic state. So I've how do I want to say it? I've hovered over it, or I've kind of given clues to that, but I'm not getting super specific into how that affects your gut wall. Good question. So here's the cool thing though, like about our guts, about really a lot of our organs in our bodies. Because God made us the way that he did, we can get ill really, really fast. Recovery does take a long time, but the good news is that we can recover. And that's the thing that I find the most like empowering about all of this, is that even though it might take us 6 months, a year, 4 years, you know, depending on how serious we are about getting healthy, we can get healthy. One thing that I want to talk about is Candida. So Candida, when it breaches the gut wall, the cells of it attached to the gut lining, it literally, and this might get to your question, Amy, where it like pulls the roots through the gut wall. And we can actually see it on a microscope. Essentially what that means is that partially digested foods get through the holes where roots are then into the bloodstream. And then the immune system recognizes that as like a foreign object. So the foreign object then gets attacked by our immune system, because that's what our bodies are built to do. Like they are built to say like, nope, you don't belong here. You got to go. The downside to that is that that's how food allergies really then get developed, or how like intolerances get developed. So if you're somebody who says like, oh, I'm intolerant to gluten, I'm intolerant to dairy, I'm intolerant to shellfish, P.S., that's me. Cutting out that food doesn't necessarily fix the problem. The problem is that you need to fix the leak. And so I would say that that is true not only for our gut, but also for our endocrine system, because our endocrine system regulates our hormones. So if you have some type of an imbalance or some type of a problem, a lot of us say, hey, I think I'm going to go on the pill, because if I've got really bad cramps, I can take the pill and the pill's going to like get rid of my cramps. The problem is that like that masks the problem. It doesn't stop the problem. It doesn't fix it. So you need to dig in deeper and you need to fix the leak. I know that's kind of a bold statement, because for a lot of us, we think like, hey, we can just take a medicine and it's going to fix the problem. But like I said in the beginning of this chat, like if you're really not ready to hear the message, that's fine. I'm not judging anybody, but I'm not going to cover up the truth in this talk. Like there's just some things that you're probably going to disagree with me on, and that's fine. But the truth of the matter is that medicine, AKA pills, even supplements, a lot of times cover up symptoms when really we need to be looking at the root cause of it. So what you put in your body matters, AKA don't eat Frankenfood or food that gets created in a lab. Processed food literally just totally damages your gut lining. If there's more than a handful of ingredients that you see on the label, I honestly would say probably too many ingredients. The more that you can scale it back and get the food to the most natural state that it's in, the better off that you are. So I'm going to pause. Amy, did that answer your question, or did that like lead us in the right direction you were hoping?
I think it led to the right direction I was hoping. I was thinking about the overuse of antibiotics. And I was thinking about how all of a sudden now doctors are not wanting to prescribe antibiotics, because finally they're listening to some of that science and realizing that it is destroying the gut lining. It's also opening those tight tinctures in your gut lining, which is creating multiple health issues. And they know autoimmune issues are on a rise. And part of it is because of that. So yes, thank you.
Yeah. So we are going to talk a little bit about antibiotics coming up. This next piece of it, I really want to just dive into 3 particular food groups that are really harmful to the gut. And then when I get into supplements, we're going to talk a little bit more about antibiotics and what they do. So in this part of it, we're going to start right off the bat with a popular offender. I like to pick on pop or soda pop, depending on where you are in the country, because it is a favorite of the American population. We go through fast food. We are in the grocery line, and it's so easy to pick up a quick sweet drink. But the reality of it is that those drinks are not really good for us. And on average, Americans are drinking about 597 cans of soda pop or soda, however you want to say it, per year. And while that might sound like, okay, well, there's 365 days in a year, that's like 1.5 per day. Like, that's not that bad. You can think about it this way. One can has up to 15 teaspoons of sugar. So now imagine that you are in your own kitchen and think about a teaspoon. And I want you to think about like taking that teaspoon into a pile of sugar and just eating it. Okay. Like, most of us are not eating our sugar intake, we're drinking it. And there's one study that actually measured the effects of 100 grams of sugar on the I think you say neurotrophilus. And within that hour of ingestion, that neurotrophil actively dropped 50%, meaning that the sugar is lowering our body's immune system. So the best advice that I can give is that if you feel a sickness coming on, if you have found yourself not feeling the best, if you had a weekend where you were out, at a bonfire and you had a mixed drink, or were just drinking a soda left and right, and you were like, "Whoa, I had like 6 or 7 of those." A lot of times you might find yourself on Monday morning not feeling the greatest. And the best thing that you can do to encourage an immune response is to cut out the sugar, period. And when I say cut out the sugar, I don't mean like start using fake sugar. I don't mean go low carb. I don't mean, just don't eat like candy or cookies. I mean, cut out sugar. And the thing is that sugar is really found in a lot of hidden places, whether it be fake sugar, because there are a lot of fake sugars out there like aspartame, Splenda, NutraSweet, Equal. And all of those, FYI, are linked to different forms of cancer. There's actually a major soft drink company out there that had to cut their aspartame out of the diet products because when it was shown to link to cancer, their sales plummeted. I think we all know who I'm talking about. But even then, they switched to a product called, I think you say it, sucralose or sucralose.
Sucralose.
Thank you. I'm so terrible with pronouncing things. This is where like the reality of me comes out. But all of that comes from, it's an insecticide. It's a compound. So really the only sugar that you should trust is like stevia or raw honey. And I don't mean raw honey, the stuff that you get at the grocery store where it has a ton of corn syrup in it and, comes in a cool little bear bottle. No, I mean like locally sourced raw honey, locally sourced raw maple syrup. And even then, I would suggest using those in small doses because sugar is still sugar and viruses and diseases feed on sugar. So the more sugar that you give it, the more it travels throughout your body. And the sad part of it is that our world is just full of sugar wherever you look. It's hidden in everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything from lunch meat, which is, like if I'm trying to be low carb or like, be healthy, I can have a lunch where I eat a little bit of lunch meat, no bread, some lettuce, some raw veggies. And I think, oh, I was just healthy. But I have to also look at like how much sugar did I just consume from that lunch meat? So lunch meat, spaghetti sauce, white bread, salad dressing. Salad dressing is one that I strongly encourage you guys to look at because we think we're being so healthy with our yummy salad. And when you look at that store-bought salad dressing, it is like mind-boggling how much sugar is in those. So read your labels when it comes to sugar. There is a study from a group called JAMA, J-A-M-A. It's a Harvard School of Health group of researchers. They gathered together and did 15 years worth of data on 40,000 different people. In that group, they found that those who took 25% of their daily calories from sugar were more than twice as likely to die of heart disease. So when we talk about heart disease in America and why Americans are so likely to die of heart disease, it's because we have very high sugary diets, because sugar is in everything. If you like to think of food and, sugar being hidden in a bunch of places, and you think, okay, I'm gonna like get serious about my cabinets, I'm gonna get serious about my refrigerator, I'm cutting sugar out. You should also think about where sugar is hidden in other places of your house. And this might come as a shock, but sugar is in your toothpaste. It's in your children's chewable vitamins. It can be found in chewing gum. It can be found in flavored teas. So I don't know if you are somebody like me who loves tea, but if it has flavor to it, like guaranteed it almost has sugar. Processed snacks is another one. So I know I talked a little bit about the goldfish and I like called those yummy snacks out, but processed snacks for ourselves, for our kids, sugar's in it. And even processed meat. So I talked about a lot about lunch meat, but you might even think about some of your other things like salami and pastrami and prosciutto. Look in meats like that, because depending on where it's sourced from, you can find sugar in those things as well when you think that you're getting a high protein snack. The average person consumes about 17 teaspoons of sugar a day, which equates to 57 pounds, not teaspoons, 57 pounds of sugar per year. And the reality of it is that we should be under 10 grams a day. So we are literally at almost twice our capacity, and that's just the average person. So some people are obviously way more above average and consume more sugar than they should. Anything over 10 grams, not 10 teaspoons, 10 grams is going to start to cause some serious gut damage to you. And just so that you're aware, 10 grams is about 2 teaspoons. So if you think about somebody who is consuming 17 teaspoons, it's like way over the max. The other big ingredient that I try to avoid myself, and I'm not sitting here on like a golden stool trying to tell you guys that I'm perfect, but gluten is one that we really should start to avoid. And I say buzzword here because I feel like gluten intolerances and gluten allergies have become more and more prevalent. And a lot of people like to say that it's fake or that it's a buzzword or that, that's just what somebody says because they're trying to go on a diet. When in reality, there is truth behind the gluten intolerance. So I want to explain to you what gluten really is, and that it's a protein that's found in wheat, rye. It's also found in barley, spelt, and the root word for gluten is glue. It comes from a Latin root word because it's elastic, and it's elastic in the gut. So it's like glue. And if we all think about what glue does, like, I don't know if I really want that going on in my gut. But those blocks of undigested protein from gluten, essentially what they do is they slide into your small intestine. Okay, so remember when I said that the small intestine is like really prone to damage? A lot of that stems from gluten, because gluten gets into your small intestine, and then essentially what it does is it slows down the absorption of other nutrients. So even if I'm eating a ton of really healthy things, if I just ate a really high, heavily gluten diet, like that's already in my small intestine, and it is preventing my small intestine from absorbing those amazing nutrients that I got from the broccoli or from the salad that I ate. So maybe I got the burger at dinner, I kept the bun, I ditched the fries, but I think I'm being healthy because I'm eating the salad. Well, if I'm eating that burger too on the bun, that gluten can actually like disrupt what I'm trying to accomplish. Not to say that, it's not a good thing to not put fries into your body, but you're not exactly doing the best thing that you could do for your body. And the reason for that is because, again, your body starts to look at gluten as foreign. So your immune system, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It starts to attack it. It says, hey, you're not supposed to be here. You're stopping me from doing my job. And so that can actually prime your small intestine for digestive issues. So the better alternative from gluten is coconut or almond flour. I know several people, including myself, who have had serious health issues. And then when they started cutting out gluten, the amount of success that they had and just the resolve that they had in their bodies is unbelievable. So I would strongly suggest to you guys, try it for 30 days, see if your symptoms disappear. It doesn't mean that like gluten is going to be the end all be all. There's a lot of things that you can do to change your diet, but doing a complete overhaul of your diet is also really hard. So if you can pick one thing, I would suggest cutting out your gluten, because we eat it in everything. We eat it in cereals, in bagels, sandwiches, pastas, pizza, desserts, like it's all there. So just take a really hard look at what you're eating, and that might be a good place to start. The other thing that I will explain when it comes to gluten is that literally for like the last 50 years, wheat has been hybridized and crossbred with other grains and other species. And then on top of it, it gets sprayed with chemicals and fertilizers and pesticides. So that does a number on our bodies. And there's a study from the USDA that found that 16 different pesticides were in wheat flour. So once they even get it to the lab, after it's been genetically modified through the seeding process, then it becomes enriched. And enriched is a scary word. If you see enriched on any of your bread products, you really should run the other way as fast as you can, because what enriched means is that it's been processed with fake vitamins and synthetics. So they literally rip all of the good vitamins, all of the good things out of that product, and then they put this fake stuff in it. And it's fake vitamins, it's synthetic, and it can really cause unbelievable damage to your gut. Non-enriched bread is incredibly hard to find. One bread that I have found, and I get it off of Amazon, but it's called Dave's Killer Brand. You can order it off of Amazon. Again, it's still something that I would caution, don't necessarily keep it in your everyday diet, because psychologically speaking, there's something about bread and your brain that kind of all goes together. But if you desperately need, some type of a bread form, Dave's Killer Brand is what I would recommend. The other thing that I would recommend is einkorn, which is a completely different kind of wheat. It doesn't hit your gut in the same way at all. It's not even close, really. The reason for that is because it's untouched by hybridization. It has retained its primitive genetic code. It has 14 chromosomes in it, which is a huge difference from the 42 chromosomes that are in a modern hybridized wheat. It's a superior ancient grain. It's got less gluten than modern day wheat, and it's got way more vitamins and minerals. Young Living does offer a einkorn line. So there's flour, pasta. I don't think they actually have bread items on it, because they offer like the bag of flour where you can like make your own einkorn bread. But they do have an option for you. There are several other companies out there that have raw einkorn, and I would just strongly encourage you to look into that. The third ingredient that I want to talk about is dairy. And dairy is one that I know is very hot. It's a very hot topic, because some people think, oh, if I'm low carb, but I'm high meat, like high protein, high dairy, like I'm healthy. There are other people who say like, no dairy, it is not good for you, don't eat it at all. So it's a very hot topic, but I truly believe that the type of dairy that you consume is really what makes the difference. So if the dairy is raw, and this is harder to find, I should say, but if dairy is raw, and I would also suggest Jersey or Gunrisi cows, basically that who are not pasteurized, they're not fed any grain, they're not given growth hormones, they're not given antibiotics, then you're in good shape. If you were to go to the grocery store, instead of sourcing it from a local farmer, let me just tell you what you're actually drinking if you buy a gallon of milk. So if you're consuming milk, butter, yogurt, cheese that are from cows that are given antibiotics, you actually could be developing an antibiotic resistance. And that's because the hormones that they give the cows, it increases your chance of absorbing those, and therefore you become antibiotic resistant, because it's no different than if you were taking the antibiotics yourself. You have an increased chance of becoming overweight. You have an increased chance of getting cancer. So when milk is pasteurized, the natural enzymes or the natural probiotics that are in the milk, the natural amino acids, they get completely destroyed. So what was once a superfood is now like poison, essentially. So if you are going to consume dairy, it is extremely important that you look at the source of your dairy and really look for something that will look at it from a holistic perspective. So everything that a cow gets injected with, whether it be ibuprofen, steroids, whatever, it goes directly into their milk. And there is a study that found that some pasteurized milk can actually be more inflammatory to the gut than gluten, which, if you were listening in the last slide, like gluten is a huge inflammatory for our gut, and something that we want to avoid. So in addition to that, pasteurized milk, it will also increase your exposure to a chemical component of Roundup. It's glyphosate is how I think you say it. It's a pesticide or an herbicide that gets applied to genetically modified crops, and it actually gets fed to cattle. So you can actually be ingesting that because it directly goes into their milk. If I didn't have a raw milk option near me, which I will tell you all, I just moved to a new city and there's legit a raw milk option like a mile and a half down the road. I couldn't be more excited about it. But before that, I didn't have that option. So if it were me, I would switch to almond milk, coconut milk, goat's milk. But the more that I get into this, now that I've become a part of this community and I'm starting to realize like where the raw milk is, I had no idea all of the places that were near me, even 20 miles north, where they actually had raw milk options. So if you start digging, you'll be pleasantly surprised to find that there are places near you that have those options. I would start by hitting up your local farmers markets, start asking questions, really dig in. But please, please, please do not start drinking soy milk. Soy is the #1 hormone disruptor on the earth. So I would just say avoid it at all costs. So now that I've knocked out 50% of our current diet, it's told you can't eat dairy, you can't eat gluten, you can't eat, all of these things. Let's take a look at foods that you can eat that will heal your gut. First and foremost, I would tell you to eat fermented foods. Fermented foods are probiotic powerhouses, and they are also probiotic storehouses, meaning that they will heal your gut, but they will also stay in your gut to keep fighting for you. So here's just a quick example. Sauerkraut, when it gets fermented, has 20 times more vitamin C than straight cabbage. And that's what sauerkraut is made from, in case you didn't know. Fermentation, it also makes the food more absorbable to the body. So quick fact, refrigerators were only invented about 100 years ago. And according to author Natasha Campbell McBride, she said that every traditional culture fermented their foods. With every mouthful of fermented foods that they ate, they were eating trillions of beneficial bacteria. Our generation and 2 to 3 generations before us, they grew up with food from the grocery store. Doesn't mean that they're doing bad things. It just means that that's how that they grew up, and it's how we're being taught. And we have an opportunity right now to change how our kids are going to learn what food are and where it comes from. So anytime that you can make it at home, trust me, you are going to have better results than buying something at the store where it sat in a warehouse for a year and then sat on a shelf before it made its way to you. Most recipes, especially when we're talking about fermented foods, are super easy to make. There is totally a learning curve when it comes to fermented foods, just simply because we're not used to them. So try a few recipes, see what you like, you'll fall in love with it. And before you know it, like you're going to be a master. But more so than ever, you're going to love that you're helping your kids' guts because you are giving them fermented foods. One thing that I would say is that if you've never done fermented foods, there is a website. It's called culturesforhealth.com. I would recommend that you start there. They will actually send you your starter culture. And then you can work on something really simple like kefir, because kefir is really easy to make. It tastes like a fizzy pop. And if you add ginger and lemon to it, it'll taste straight up like ginger ale. And it's like knockout good. So I would start there. The other thing that I would suggest is drinking bone broth. Literally every type of bone broth out there, it's been a staple in diets across the globe for centuries. It is a superfood. It's one of the fastest way that you can rebuild your gut lining. The bones literally get boiled or simmered for a couple of hours, even up to a few days. And then it starts to release things like collagen, proline, glutamine. All of those things help with arthritis, joint conditions, IBS. So if you suffer from that, bone broth is your best friend. The broth is literally filled with things that are easy for the body to absorb because it comes from the body. It's got calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, silicone, sulfur, amino acids. All of those things will aid with digestion, helping with allergies. So like this is the prime time of the year where everyone to me complains about their allergies and their asthma. Start drinking some bone broth. It's going to help to heal your gut, which can heal your allergies. I would say make a big pot of it once a week. Sneak it into everything. Start putting it into your taco meat. Put it into spaghetti sauces. Put it in your soups. Put it in your casseroles. You can literally use it to replace water at any meal. It's so nourishing for both you and your kids. And the ideal amount that somebody should be consuming is about 1 to 2 cups per day if they're going to start working on their gut healing. It's super easy to make. If you can find a hunk of meat that's organic or non-GMO and has been fed no grains, you literally put the bones in a crock pot, fill it with filtered water, add a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, and then let it go. If it's in the crock pot, it'll take about 12 hours. If it's in the Instapot, it'll take about 2. You'll get a rich broth. It's super soothing to your gut. It'll last 45 days in the fridge, 4 to 5, not 45. If you haven't touched it and then there's a layer of fat on top, that's really the good stuff for you in terms of fat. And then at that point, it can last up to 6 months in your fridge. If you don't go through it fast enough, that's totally okay. I would suggest to you that you pour it into ice cube trays and then throw it in the freezer. Once they're frozen, you can put it in a Ziploc and then you can literally take those little cubes and throw it into everything. The other thing that I would say is like start focusing on organic. When you go organic, you're cutting out pesticides and herbicides and GMO seeds. You're getting way more nutrients in your diet. Over 200 years ago, there was a journal of applied nutrition that found that organic apples, potatoes, pears, and corn had 63% more calcium, 73% more iron, and 118% more magnesium than non-organic products. So yes, organic is more expensive typically, depending on where you get it from. But if you start looking at your sourcing, if you start buying in bulk, if you start going to farmers markets, if you start reaching out to local farmers, you can actually buy these things at cost and it can be the same, if not cheaper than what you're paying at the store. But I would also say if you're not willing to do those things, if you're not willing to dig in and figure out where your source is, just remember that all of the ailments that we talked about at the very beginning, your sore muscles, your depression, your headaches, all of that, it's something that you have to treat as a condition. And it's significantly more emotionally and financially taxing when you're going through the traditional medical system. Everything that you have learned about fat. So fat is my last food group that I like to tackle. Everything that you've learned about fat is likely untrue. There are good fats, there are bad fats, just like in the world of dairy. Your brain needs probably 1/4 to 1/2 cup of good fat every day for it to work correctly. fat is really, truly brain food. So think like good fat equals brain food. When I say good fats, I mean coconut oil, grass-fed butter, avocados, avocado oil, tallow, lard, olive oil, ghee, flaxseed oil. Like those are all good fats. Bad fats, I mean trans fats. So trans fats act like poison in your body. And I would say that 90% of canola or vegetable oils are made from genetically modified plants, which means that they are partially hydrogenated. And those, when you're hydrogenated or hydrogenated, however you want to say it, that means that they've been injected with hydrogen at high temperatures, and that's what makes them a trans fat. Those have been linked to birth defects, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, liver problems, obesity, fertility problems. So there's a lot of things that you should pay attention to when you're looking at fats. I'm trying to hustle here because I know we're over because I started late because of my technical issues. So bear with me. I've got 5 slides left. I really hope that this chat has been filling your heart in deep areas. I, for one, want to do better for my family. I am not perfect. I'm not sitting here trying to pretend that I'm perfect. I know that you want to do better for your family. And yet the reality is we really weren't taught how to cook. We were raised on food from boxes and cans and cheese and processed foods. But yet we can change that for the next generation if we really choose how to fight for it. And I am not perfect. I am not the one sitting here saying like, I'm on a high horse and I'm the healthiest this can be. I am in the middle of this with you. Like I have bought books and I've been doing my research and I've got cookbooks and I'm figuring this out as I go. And I'm happy to do that with you. I'm happy to hold your hand as we go through this. But the bottom line is that if you choose to fight for it, we can do this. We can totally change our health and the health of our kids. It just might mean that we have to say no in other areas. And that's not always the thing that we want to do. Okay, so there's 2 more things that I want to quickly touch on before we wrap up. One of them being supplements. So I won't go into a ton of detail because I know that I have literally an entire hour or 2 extra on supplements when it comes to content. But there are 3 supplements that I really want to talk about when it comes to the gut. So I'm going to hit on those first. The first being probiotics. So a couple of little known facts about probiotics. One, they help to clear infections for the gut. I won't read through this entire slide, but they will resolve imbalances in the gut. They help with weight loss, insulin resistance, celiac disease. They can help to cleanse your kidneys. They eliminate toxins. They help with cognitive function. Young Living has 2. When it comes to probiotics, they have one for adults, which is called Life 9. And then they also have one for kids, which is called Mighty Pro. That one is a pre and probiotic for children. This is one of the top supplements when it comes to a healthy gut. In fact, I would say that a probiotic is pretty critical. If you've had too much bad bacteria and not enough good bacteria, you're not constantly introducing good bacteria into your gut. You will end up with an imbalance. And remember, good bacteria doesn't colonize, so you have to work at it. Like you have to keep putting the good bacteria into your body. So that's probiotics. Second supplement I'll talk about is enzymes. In a nutshell, enzymes create chemical reactions in the body. They speed up the rate of the chemical reaction to help support our life. The enzymes in our body, they will do important tasks like building muscle. They destroy toxins, they break down food so that you can get the nutrients that you need, and it will help you to absorb those nutrients in your small and large intestine. In short, you are what you digest, says Dr. Joseph Mercola. He said that in one of his articles. I would strongly suggest following his website. The protein that will slow down nearly every inflammatory disease is an enzyme, and that's from Dr. Joe as well. 90% of Americans will buy processed food, myself included. I am not immune to that because sometimes quick and easy is just the way to do it. But diets that are heavily processed in foods that diets that are heavy in processed foods or pharmaceutical drugs, antibiotics, those things will deplete your body's ability to make enzymes. So if you heat your food above 116 degrees, meaning AKA a microwave, it renders most of your enzymes in your food inactive. So I would say if you can focus on a mixture of cooked and raw foods in your diet, you will get more enzymes into your gut, which is what you need to help you process your food and then digest the nutrients that you need. If you don't have enough enzymes, you will see it in a multitude of different forms: constipation, bloating, cramping, flatulence, belching, heartburn, acid reflux. All of these things, as they progress, it's a sign of malnourishment. And that chronic malnourishment can lead to a bunch of different illnesses. So if you don't have the nutritional building blocks that you need, you'll never be able to recover from an illness. One interesting fact about enzymes is that by the time you're 20, natural enzyme production starts to decline. And then every 10 years after that, your body's production will be down by 13%. So in my very first slide, when I said like, hey, aging is part of why you might not feel your best, this is really where it comes into it. So the answer to this is supplement. Don't waste any time. Take enzymes. Oh, I didn't come up with that rhyme, but it's true. Start to take an enzyme supplement because it'll do you a load of good. Last supplement is omegas, omegas 3, 6, 9s, and 12s. They literally help everything in the body communicate. And the way I like to look at that is that when all of your soldiers are talking to each other, they win the battle. When you lose communication, that's when people don't know what the heck is going on. They don't know what the other party is doing. So then they start doing their own thing. And that can really get everybody off into haywire. So where do you get omegas? You get them from wild caught cold water fish, grass-fed meats, sprouted nuts and seeds. 90% or 95% of Americans are typically deficient in omega-3 fatty acids, which are the DHA and EPAs. So again, I would strongly suggest a supplement. Young Living does have one. It's called Omega-Gize. So you can supplement with that as well. All right, one final story, and this I actually need my little book for because I got this from a friend. But if you have been feeling like, okay, there's a lot of things that Jill said, and wow, that's a lot of information, and I don't think that I can do it. Maybe you're thinking at this point, this is too hard. There's no way that I can do this. I just want to share this quick story. So this is from Sarah Harnish, who I absolutely love. But she wrote a story, and this is a true story about a professor. His name is Tim Spector. And she said he's actually quite famous. He's a professor of genetic epidemiology at King's College in London. He made a deal with his son, Tom, that if he let him study his gut, he would buy him McDonald's for 10 days straight because he wanted to take a peek at his microbiome. Tom was quite elated about the idea. He loved a McDonald's, and hello, free McDonald's, what's better? He's in college, it's free food. Free is always better when you're in college, right? Well, for 10 days, Tom ate a Big Mac or chicken nuggets, fries, and a Coke. He ate nothing but McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He gave stool samples before, during, and after his fast food feast. After a week and a half, he had become weak. His skin had taken on a gray color. He was craving salads and fruit. Teams from both Cornell University and the British Gut Project tested Tom's microbiome, and the community of gut bacteria had been completely disseminated. Tom lost 1,400 species, 40% of what was in his entire gut tract in a week and a half. It took him months to heal. So fast food might not be your Achilles heel. Maybe it's a sugary, coffee drink. Maybe it's a grocery budget that you're battling with because you don't have enough to cover, organic everything. Whatever it is, let me just tell you, it's worth investigating additional alternatives. It's worth looking into your gut health. It's worth investing. And each step that you take, each baby step that you take forward is one step that you're not looking backward. So if you decide, hey, I'm just going to start buying condiments that don't have sugar in them. I'm going to start making my own kombucha so that my kids can drink that instead of Kool-Aid. I'm going to, start making my own bone broth so that I can start throwing that into recipes. whatever steps you decide to take today are steps that are going to be a step forward. So there is a plan. And I know we are over time. I apologize. I really wanted to try and start on time so that I could end on time. And I know I had some technical difficulties. So I thank you for bearing with me. If you have RSVP'd yes or maybe to this event, you will be getting a follow-up email from me with the recording as well as next steps so that I can share with you some of the resources that I got and how I got my research, people that you can follow, recipe books that you can buy if you are really interested in diving head on. And if you have additional questions, like please feel free to email me. I would be happy to include answers to that in my next newsletter and keeping everyone up to speed on gut health. So thanks so much again, guys. I really appreciate everybody being here, and I hope you have a great night. Talk to you later. Bye.